It's my 51 year in Canada. And my wife for 42 years, sitting right there. Yeah, I'm proud to be here, but just back on about the chop suey story, I just wanted to share with you a story. In 1968, Christmas time, I began a weekend job in Longueuil. Everybody heard of it, Longueuil? Around Montreal. I was studying electrical engineering in University of Ottawa. And I took the weekend jobs Friday night right through Sunday afternoon in Longueuil as an assistant cook. So I know how to fry this chop suey stuff. Barely. And then 1969, 1970, I was a waiter in Prince Rupert, north of Vancouver, about 500 miles north of Vancouver. So obviously day in, day out is chop suey in, chop suey out. But the myth about the word chop suey came back longer, came back at the end of the Qing Dynasty. It was said that the real Prime Minister, Mr. Li Hongxiang, traveled to southern China, and somehow they rushed to put some food together, and they loved it. And they asked the people, what kind of food is this? They didn't know the answer. They said chop suey, meaning mix and match. And they loved it. But that's just a myth. Whether or not it's real, who knows? Okay, well, we are going to talk about this year, and this is a very exciting year. 2019 is called the year of the Earth Pig, but the combination of this year only happens once every 81 years. So the last time something similar that happened would be 1938. Okay, the second year when Japan invaded China, and when Germany created the Second World War. So that's given us a lot of hint, all right? Now, in the human life we live in, believe it or not, nothing is incidental. There are actually two secret codes controlling everything that we live in. The first code we finally admitted that controls the human body is called the DNA. I guess everybody heard about it. The DNA and the RNA. But there's actually a code that goes deeper than that. That code controls our whole life, our human life, where we came from, what happened to us, our relations, our health, our careers. But it goes further than that, also governs things that happen in this world. And this is called a life code. Okay, every human has a life code. In the human case, this life code is hidden in our daytime place of birth. So a lot of secrets in our life is hidden there, and that's what I do for a living. Okay, today I have done this kind of work, life code for individuals, for more than 19,650 people, all over more than 70 countries. Yeah, so people fly to see me, talk to me over WeChat or WhatsApp or Facebook, worldwide for that. But we can also chart the world by basing on the birthday of the year or the birthday of the country. So I've actually done a complete life chart for modern day China using their date of 1949, October 1, 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so from that alone, I calculated what happened to China, and I precisely calculated the Cultural Revolution timing, right on the punch, because of it. So by using this concept, I developed a method based on 3 methods to calculate the future of the world. And I've been doing that for more than 20 years. And CNN discovered it a few years ago, and so I was on CNN. Then later on regarded me as one of the topmost of its kind in the world, at least in North America, because the precision of my predictions. They noticed I predicted the Sichuan earthquake, I predicted the 911 event, and I predicted the major tsunami, and also the earthquake in Japan within a month when it happened. So because All that's mathematical. And I have one biggest advantage most people in my job don't have, because I was an IT guy like you guys. I graduated from University of Waterloo Computer Science in 1972 and got my business degree University of Toronto in 1974. So my background is 100% scientific. And to make things more interesting, I have absolutely no religions. Okay, I only believe in logic and philosophy. Okay, so everything I said I could become now today, advisor to 39 builders and 9 banks. And I'm also advisor to the largest developer in all of China, the Poly Group, advisor to number 9, number 10, wealthiest man in all of Indonesia. So I go to those countries quite a bit because of my line of work. They require my advice to make them decide on projects in excess of $100 million, many times. Okay, so now a little bit of advertising done. Now, what's so significant about 2019 is that's so different from the last 20 years. Okay, now, I mentioned earlier, I use 3 methods to calculate the life of the world for the future. Number 1, I use the method I Ching. Anybody heard of it? I Ching, I-C-H-I-N-G. Okay, I Ching is the most advanced mathematical thing from China, created 5,000 years ago. You can say I Ching is the origin of computers, but I Ching is yin and yang, 0 and 1. From 0 and 1, you get all these formulas and equations to calculate many, many usable applications. So that's the first method I used. Second method is called the flying star method. In other words, there are 9 stars that I can massage with, that flow to and fly to different portions of the world every year. The third is a complete light chart for the year based on the beginning date of the year. For example, this year, 2019, when I say this year, I mean 2019, will begin not on Chinese New Year Day, which is February 5th. Actually, technically, will begin on February the 4th. Okay? February the 4th at 12 o'clock noon. So that means any kids born on February the 4th up to 12 noon, or they are born before 11 a.m., they are still not pig, they're still dog. Okay, very interesting, eh? that concept. Now, so with these 3 methods, I calculated all the 9 stars for 2019 coincide. The number 8 go back to 8, number 1 go back to 1, number 2 go back to 2. So every power for every position is magnified or doubled. That could mean trouble, could also mean change. So the key to 2019 for the world is the word changes. Anybody not ready to changes are going to be wiped out. So you are ready for changes, be flexible, be adaptable, and also be a student. Always keep on learning. As long as you keep on learning, the future is yours. The moment you thought you know everything, your life finished. So as long as you keep on learning for the future, you're always young and also always energized, like me at 73 years old. Okay, so you can still keep young forever. All right? Now, so the first thing is, what's the number 1 significant thing for 2019, besides the word changes? Is the east and the west pendulum changes. Because before 2023, okay, starting 2004 to 2023 is a 20-year cycle of the number 8. Number 8. Okay, 8 represents the wealth sign for these 20 years. And the country represented by the number 8 is China. So this year, double 8 goes back to the center. So that means the pendulum switches. Up through the past 120, actually to almost 200 years. Okay? China been suffering significantly because China went through a very long period of low cycles. But put it that way, out of the 4 most ancient countries in the world, which country really still survives? and prosper, only China. Okay, the other countries either wiped out from history, such as Babylon, which is now Iraq, which is also wiped out. Okay, and other countries such as India with so many economic and political issues inside, and also other places I didn't want to mention. But China is different because it's the feng shui setting of the entire land mass of China gave it the nutrition to survive. And the history, the philosophies of the people also make them survive. Now, so 2019, the number 8 also goes back center. So the center part is double rate. And when you dissect the world from the feng shui point of view, we call China to be the center on the earth. So you know what, in the old days, they didn't know the earth is round. They thought the earth is a plane, is flat. So in doing so, they call it China. The meaning of China, double meanings. The original meaning of China, meaning the land, the center point of the Qing dynasty. That's the first dynasty that China united to be one country. That was back more than 2,000 years ago. The second meaning of China, Chai means center, Na means country. So China means country of the center. Okay, so from that you divide the world into different centers. So that means the double rate is in the center. That means the world money center will be in China this year. Okay, so that's why it's a changeover. However, from a I Ching point of view, the governing I Ching draw for the center is mountains. Mountains is one of the 4 most difficult draws in I Ching. Because it's mountain, that means everything China like to achieve is like climbing up the hill. Lots of difficulties, lots of things to overcome. But they will do it. They will do it as they've done it for many centuries. Okay, so that means the world is changing. The power center and the wealth center switch to China. And that's why a lot of companies like GM getting smart. Instead of manufacturing in Oshawa, they're going to manufacture in China. And Audi already did it long time ago, and in China. Okay? So just for your information, I'm also advisor to Porsche and Audi. Okay? For the feng shui side of it. So that's how it changes. And then more and more companies going to do so, including Walmart. So in other words, what Mr. Trump is doing, they're not killing China, they're killing themselves. Because a lot of these companies he's trying to kill are actually American companies. Isn't that funny? Isn't it an irony? Okay, it's a little short-sighted from it. No, so that's the center part. Now, because the center part also happened to be a center of dryness, so China become on the center part of the places, extreme. Why? Lots of drought, but lots of water, very extreme. The west side, lots of drought. The eastern side, lots of water. Okay? And I'm predicting a possible major earthquake in Sichuan once again. South and southwestern China. Okay, similar to what I predicted, but not as severe as what happened a few years back. Now, if we move to northwards, we define 2 major countries to be northern countries, Russia and Canada. Okay? Now, these 2 countries are classified water countries. Canada was in big trouble 2018, last year, which is still a couple of weeks to go. The reason is, as I predicted in my speech last year, Canada was in 1918 in the center of triple conflict and 5 yellow, meaning lots of legal issues, lots of confusion, lots of loss of directions, and I believe today we have witnessed that. Like the Huawei stuff that just happened, Canada could not have done something more stupid than that. Because Canada never signed a sanction against Iraq. And they had no right to detain someone from an executive from China. They are not even part of the sanction agreement. So they got themselves in trouble. Nobody ever read the fine print. So because 1918, Canada was supposed to do that. And Canada brought in a lot of crime to the country last year, okay? But 2019, Canada is going to smart up quite a bit. Because Canada in 2019 is into the very magical number 4. A lot of Southern Chinese people and real estate agents hate it. They said if with the 4, they can't sell the house. But every house I help out with the number 4 always got sold first. Because it's a matter of education. 4 means scholarship, means smartness, means learning. So that means Canada finally smart up in 2019. And they are going to switch more emphasis to high tech rather than natural resources. Okay, so you're going to see a lot of inventions. I guess part of these inventors had to be Google. Google, I kept telling all my friends to buy Google's stocks. How much has it gone up now since beginning of the year? Okay? But so Canada is in high tech. That also means they're going to shift the attention for university and college studies more to high tech. The only irony or dilemma is this high tech will cause a lot of job changes. So those people who live in yesterday's world, thinking that they call something called the iron bowl, rice bowl, or golden rice bowl, this bowl suddenly becomes so fragile. I always say the most secure things can be the most secure. The most secure things can one day become the most insecure. So don't trust that you have a secure job. I remember in my days in 1972 when I graduated, to be able to work in the government, to be able to work in the then called Ontario Hydro, you got a golden rice bowl. That means you got a job for life. Okay, you work until you retire and be comfortable, have your 9 to 5 or 3-hour lunches, something like that. All that is history. All that is history. If you are good in what you do, no matter where you are, you will do well. Okay? So the trend, the unfortunate trend, is a lot of university grads these days cannot find jobs because they are too theoretical. They had to go back to colleges and take diplomas, hands-on, and become practical and find jobs. Quite an irony. How sad. Okay, hopefully this year, Canada is going to learn it the hard way and give more opportunities to high-level education instead of demising them so much. But that's going to change. That's on the north side. Now, northeast side is called the illness center for this year. So there will be, this year is full of changes. The number 1 killer illness for 2019 is mental illness. The number 1 killer in 1918 was cancer. Okay? So all these changes. So if you run into a buddy of yours, suddenly one night call you at 4 o'clock in the morning and talk about something nonsense, you better be careful. Okay? Because there's a lot of crazy people coming up this year. So especially, but in terms of countries, northeastern countries would be the sources of many illnesses from northern Japan, and also the Korea side. So all these are the sources of illness. In terms of Canada, you know what that is? The Maritimes and Quebec. So be careful when you travel there. You have a good chance to catch a bad flu. They may last 1 to 2 months. In fact, a couple of my friends came back from there and got a huge flu and didn't seem to be able to shake it off. All right, so things like that happen. Now, what about the east side? The east side is a travel center. That means there's a lot of mobility changes. One of the major changes countries would be Japan. So Japan, double-edged sword. On one side, lots of people like to travel to Japan, including our son, James. For some reason, he wants to retire in Hawaii, but he'd like to travel in Japan. I think you guys are crazy, but anyways, that's okay, young kids. He's only 39 years old, so still a young kid. All right? So anyways, but Japan is also in a very subtle manner, juggling between the West and the East. So it's in the middle. You know what the whole world will end up with, like this 3-state dynasty in old China, about the 4th century. In the 4th century, China was divided into 3 countries. But if you look at the whole world is also 3 countries: USA, Russia, and China. What about all these other countries? All these other countries are chessmates. We are only chessmates. We are just sesame. All right? So all that is going to magnify in 2019, and you'll see it loud and clearly. So Japan is trying to expand on the military side, trade side, but trying to be friends with both China and USA. I don't know how it's going to work. It's so tricky. Southeast side is a receiving center, represented by Taiwan and Hong Kong. But this is represented by the number 7. The number 7, even though in the Western culture means luck, actually means war. Whenever 7, it means warring. You're going to see tremendous among the arguments, controversies in Taiwan, so as in Hong Kong. Okay, everybody's juggling for position. And in Taiwan, the major thing is whether or not one day they return to China peacefully or war. But with the 7th Fleet of the U.S. Navy still in the Pacific Ocean, that's the real problem for the Union.
Yeah. So we have 5 minutes left.
Okay, almost cover the whole world now. Okay, the south side is the argument center. That means you're going to travel to South America. Be careful about controversies among people. Lots of robberies, lots of disturbances, instabilities in places such as South America, India, and even part Australia. And then the southwest side is the world center this year. Southwest side is called 5 Yellow Center, expecting earthquakes outside Los Angeles, and also southwest of China, which will be Sichuan. That's like what I mentioned earlier. The west is most exciting. West is represented by United States. It's represented by the number of triple conflict and also kind of speculative money. So 2 money centers this year, China and United States, and also Western Europe. Except United States is the center of triple conflict. That means a lot of warrings, arguments, not just inside the country, but outside the country as well. This is an exciting year, very exciting for United States. Northern Europe, that is, does very well this year. It's called the Happiness Center. You guys that want safety and want to enjoy life, go there. Now, just one last word, everybody's waiting, is what business is the best for 2019? That would include, okay, fire, okay, and water and metal. Fire is high-tech and education, okay? Water is logistics, international trading. And then the metal would be machinery, robotics, cars. All these 3 sectors will do well this year, especially high-value metals, and especially copper. And on the negative side, wood is the worst. Wood and also earth. That means textile business, clothing industry, you're going to see more close downs and ups, or mergers. Some of them already happening, as I predicted. And real estate, big ups and big downs. So that's a major side, so you know which way to go. So I would say 2018, 2019 are the 2 best years to buy real estate, because they are on the downswing. So by the time you finish buying, it's going to be on the upswing by 2020. Time to make some money. Okay? So anyways, well, I'm glad to be here. Time is up for the 5 minutes. So
There's one question. So you have a question?
yeah, I skipped the, sorry, go ahead.
Any predictions about Trump?
Louder.
About Donald Trump?
Donald Trump, unfortunately, is not election year, because any election for 2019 will be into changes. And believe it or not, I just came back from Florida Monday. For over 4 days to see 36 appointments and 20 clients. And then, you know what local Americans love him? You'll be surprised. So if he will run, unless he doesn't want, if he runs again, he has a huge chance to win again. Okay, so good or bad, but USA needs him to change the world, to bring from high to low for the future. Thank you very much, and have a very happy new year. Okay.